You're listening to What We Found, a podcast by Seek and Find Studies for those seeking God through the study of Scripture. I'm Summer Lacy.
And I'm Christy Davis.
Each episode, we invite you to listen in as we have a conversation about what we've found through our latest study of Scripture. Together, we'll learn about God and His people, one book and one chapter at a time. Today, we have a conversation on Ruth chapter 1. So let's get started. Good morning, Christy.
Good morning, Summer.
My friend. We're back.
We're back.
For episode 2 of our conversations, and we are in the book of Ruth.
That's right.
Chapter 1.
Yes.
Exciting stuff.
It is.
So catch us up. What happens in Ruth chapter 1?
Ruth chapter 1 is basically kind of context for the book of Ruth.
Yeah.
So it starts by telling us that the events that we're going to read about over the next 4 chapters are during the time of the judges.
Yeah.
We find out that a man who's from Bethlehem in Judah takes his family because of a famine outside of Israel into Moab.
Okay.
And that the family stays there for quite some time, for 10 years. While they're there, the man, Elimelech, and his 2 sons, Mahlon and Chilion, die.
Okay.
But before that, they had taken Moabite wives. So one was married to Orpah and one was married to Ruth. After the death of her husband and sons, Naomi decides to move back, to return to the land of Israel, and her 2 daughters-in-law go with her. Well, they start to go with her. About a little bit, however long into this journey, she starts trying to convince them to go back.
Naomi does.
There's no reason. They should go back to their mother's homes. They should find new husbands, get married. Yeah. She thanks them for the kindness that they have shown to her and to her sons. One of the daughters-in-law, Orpah, turns back. It was good advice, so she goes back. But Ruth continues on with Naomi. We find out that they arrive at the beginning of the barley harvest.
Okay.
People are excited to see Naomi, but Naomi's not in the best mental or spiritual state.
I can imagine.
She tells the women, "Don't call me Naomi, call me Mara, because I'm bitter." And lists all of these things that she thinks the Lord has done toward her, that He's afflicted her, that He's opposed her. And so that's where we end. We end after finding out why they left, how long they were there, and this journey back.
Yeah, kind of ends on a bummer of a note.
It does. It really does.
Well,
so what stood out to you most as you read or studied on your own from the first chapter of Ruth?
From the very first line, during the time of the judges. And some of this, admittedly, is because we had spent a whole year.
A very long time.
A very long year.
Yes.
Studying and writing and then going through the teachings of the book of Judges. So I had a really good understanding of what during the time of the judges meant. And so that struck me immediately. It was a signal that this was not likely to be a happy story.
Right. The time of the judges also struck me right away. And I think it's sort of funny because it's like a throwaway line. If you don't know what's happened before, you're just like, whatever, time of the judges. You don't even notice or even maybe understand what that meant.
Yeah.
Like the time of the judges was an entire epic in Israel's history. Mm-hmm. Israel started as a family in the promised land before they moved down to Egypt.
Yeah.
Then it expanded from 70 people to million plus.
12 tribes.
Yes. And then when they left Egypt, they left under one leader, Moses.
Yeah.
And through the promised land, this entire vast people group is being led by Moses and the tribal leaders. And then we get to Joshua when they go into the promised land, also led by one leader.
Yeah.
Then we get into the promised land, and after the death of Joshua, it's sort of a fragmented society.
Yeah, things
where each
start to
tribe,
deteriorate.
well, yes, each tribe is led by their own tribal chieftains or however, and it's very fragmented. So the time of the judges lasted from the death of Joshua until the first king, King Saul. It's this 200-300 year time period where everything was just quite a bit different than it was before and different than it was going to be later.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we know when we studied the book of Judges that it was just this constant cycle where the people betrayed God or served other gods, were unfaithful to God. God took away whatever protection he had, or he sent invaders, and things would happen, and then they would come back to God.
Yeah.
God would raise up a judge. The judge would
them.
deliver them, but then they would ignore that judge and go right back into the same cycle. So when I think of the period of the judges, I'm certainly thinking of the fact that, are they coming off of
where are they
judge?
in the cycle?
Yes. Or are they about to, we sort of get an indication
downward again
because of the famine in the land.
Yeah.
That it's likely that this was during a bad part before God would send a judge.
Yeah. Sure. During the time of the judges, such an interesting way to start the book of Ruth. Yes. And because of all of the reason you said, the people who read this account originally would have been a very clear indicator that this was a sticky time and not likely the beginning of a very happy tale.
Right, exactly.
So the author pushes us out of that, and then the text keeps going on. So we know that we are during the time of the judges, and then we're told that there is this man who leaves and he goes to Moab. And at first, we don't know much about this man, so we think, okay, that's neutral information.
Yeah.
Somebody leaves the land of Judah, and then we're given more and more information, and we find out in the next sentence that, this was an Israelite. Mm-hmm. And not only is he going to Judah, but he's gone to Moab. And then I think very quickly we start to form opinions about this man's decision. So let's talk a little bit about that. What are we thinking about this guy's decision to leave Bethlehem and Judah and to go to Moab with this family during this time of famine?
Well, this whole chapter is going to make me a little uncomfortable because I think when we read an account, it's easy for us a million miles away to just get a little judgmental of the people in the account. And we can and actually, like, it happens on both sides. So we can be like, shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Like hindsight's 20/20. He shouldn't have left the promised land, all of these sorts of things. And then we can also make it that the good decisions that we see that were actually super hard as well, that we don't actually give enough credit to how big of a decision it was for Naomi to return.
How difficult that was.
Like, we just kind of gloss over it. So I know that most people will look at Elimelech and they will say, well, you did the wrong thing.
You should
and
not
I feel
have
super
left.
uncomfortable. I feel as though it's like the verse that's like, well, be careful the measure with which you measure others, because that's going to be the measure that's measured back to you. So I feel uncomfortable making even kind of talking about whether Elimelech made the right decision, because I wouldn't want somebody to look at my decisions and say, well, that was stupid, like, even when it was,
Yeah, and so that's Elimelech's decision on a really granular level, right? On an individual level. But if we back up just a little bit, in general, it wasn't...
You're going to try to force me to say something.
I'm going to trick you. In general, it wasn't a great thing for the people of God to leave the place of God's promise. So we have that as a general background. And then we have Elimelech's individual decision to take his family out of the place of famine, which, as you've pointed out too, it's much more difficult to make a really harsh, defined judgment on that individual's man's decision to do that.
I mean, when we take a step back and we just say in general, should people leave the promised land? I think we should pause.
Yeah.
Because anyone who was considering leaving, moving away from the promised land, should have paused and really make sure.
What does
because
this
in
mean?
general, remember, in Numbers, when they refused to enter the promised land, God was not going to give them a land that they refused to take.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the flip side of that.
Yeah.
When you abandon something that the Lord has given you, you should be pretty sure that that's what God wants you to do.
Yeah.
Also, just the fact that Elimelech died and Mahlon and Chilion died, that's a little bit of an indication that maybe
it's not a great look.
But you don't. It's not a great look. But we actually don't get the narrator of the book of Ruth telling us it was and they did this horrible thing, which we get a lot of times in Judges.
Yeah, sure.
They did evil in the sight of the Lord.
There's none of that.
There's none of that here. So we're left to kind of wrestle
and speculate
with that.
And think about. And I really appreciate that situation. I feel like it's an invitation for us to think about, to read the account that the Lord has provided, and then to use our own minds and hearts to wrestle with God through those things. Whereas if the narrator gave us the answer, it would be a shortcut. We wouldn't have to do any of that thinking, any of that wondering. So I think sometimes it's very easy as readers of the Bible to get really frustrated when the narrator doesn't just come out and tell us, and that was a bad thing, or in this very much pleased the Lord. But that doesn't happen in the Bible as much as we might think, and certainly not as much as we might want.
Well, and I think that's a very good point. So when we do see the Bible tell us that something was evil or something was good, we should really pay attention to those things because you don't get that commentary a lot of the time.
Not as often as you would think.
Instead of maybe being frustrated when we don't get it, we should just sort of train our eyes to look
Really
at
good.
when God says this was bad. What exactly was this that he was saying was bad? Because we probably have some sort of application a way that it could be applicable to us too.
Yeah, I agree with that, because there's also the whole situation with not just that they left the promised land, but where they went. So again, I'm going to, or you can ask me the question, or I'll ask you. We can talk it out together. They went to Moab.
Yes.
Generally speaking, good thing or bad thing to go to Moab?
I mean, I don't think it was a good thing.
Okay.
Israel had a really long history with Moab.
Yeah.
So Moab came from one of the descendants of Lot, which was Abraham's nephew. When the Israelites were getting the promised land, their allocation of the promised land from God, God told them to stay away from the Moabites, that he was not going to give them any of their land.
The Moabites.
The Moabites. And he also was not going to give the Ammonites, which was the other descendant of Lot, any of their land. So, just like when we see the Edomites, which was Esau's descendants, they have a history, they have a connection to Israel.
Yeah.
And at times, so we should be a little careful with those people groups.
Yeah.
Because God, this is another thing about God that absolutely blows your mind. How kind he is.
Yeah.
Because of just the association
With his people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Moab, I feel like it's a little bit difficult because on the one hand, the Israelites, these are relatives of the Israelites.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the Moabites tried to, they
haven't
so
always
great.
played nicely.
So they've gotten a whole set of consequences from God because of how they have treated the Israelites.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult thing. And Moab was I think it was it the second judge?
One of the very early ones.
Yeah, very early on, they were being oppressed
by the Moabites.
Got
it.
So it's this like I'm not really sure how to handle the Moabites other than like it's not great. You probably shouldn't have gone there.
Okay. So we have all of those factors. We have the narrator not really telling us this was good, this was bad.
Right.
So it's really kind of on us as readers to talk to God about that and to use the rest of what we know of the biblical narrative to make as informed decisions as we can. At the same time, always holding the biblical text with an open hand, because who knows where the story is going to go, as the book of Ruth shows.
Yeah, and at a minimum, we should view it as a risky decision.
Great.
The decision to leave Israel and to go to Moab was a risky decision.
Yeah. And we find that as the story goes along, as you already mentioned, the 3 men of the family, they die. And we're not told how. But we are told that they made the decision to leave Israel, and then they made another decision, and that was the decision to stay.
Yeah, Elimelech and Mahlon and Chilion stayed
in Moab
for 10 years.
And they connected themselves to the
Yes.
Moabites by marrying Moabite women,
Yes.
Orpah and Ruth.
Yes.
And then they die. So we have all the men of this family gone. So the surviving member, Naomi, is left in Moab, and she has 2 daughter-in-laws now. The line that really struck me as I was just rereading the text this morning is it says, Naomi was left without. Oh, man, it hit me just in this whole new way when I reread it. This
and
picture,
she says, I went away full and I came back empty.
Yeah, and just the loneliness and the sorrow and the hopelessness
Yes.
of that picture of Naomi being left without. Without everything that she came to Moab with.
Right.
And yet, from the reader's perspective, we see something that Naomi seems blinded to, because she's not completely without, because she has these 2 daughter-in-laws.
Yes.
Who want to go with her when Naomi makes the next really big decision, which is to return.
Yes. I don't think when I first was, reading and studying Ruth that I was drawn, or Ruth chapter 1, that I was drawn as much to the decisions that were made, but it became clear, and then it was like the thing that I couldn't.
That's all you could see.
Yes. It was, this decision by Elimelech, which, maybe Naomi participated in.
Yeah, we don't know.
To some extent. Then there was this decision of Mahlon and Chilion to stay, like to not return, to just put down roots. Then we see, after all of this heartache and Naomi's decision to return.
Yeah.
And that decision was actually, at first at least, Naomi and Orpah and Ruth's decision. Yeah. They all decided
left.
To return. Then as we continue on, when Naomi, it's strange that she would be like, they would start this journey, and then something be like, wait,
something happened.
I need to try to convince these women not to continue on with me. This makes no sense for you to come with me.
Yeah.
And then one turns back, but the other continues.
Keeps going. Yeah.
So those decisions, I don't know. I've just camped there quite a bit. One was because they are huge decisions. Yeah. They're decisions that change the trajectory of each and every one of their lives.
Yeah.
And we all are faced with some decisions like that.
Yeah.
Some decisions we make them, and in retrospect, we're like, that changed everything. Yeah. Some we know
going into it
are going to be a big decision. Where you go to school.
Yeah.
Where you might take your first job. Who you marry. These are decisions that, they change everything.
Yeah.
The decision to return, I think, when we look at it, without trying to put ourselves into Naomi's position, we think, well, yeah, that was like the logical thing to do.
Yeah, go on, go back home.
But I just think it was such a harder decision. It's just so much easier to just continue on with
where you
something
are
than it is to like even go back to what you
used to
had
know.
before.
Yeah.
I
well,
mean,
because in a Naomi situation, there was no going back to what she had before.
right. This is not the same existence, and that makes the decision even harder. Like even for Elimelech, I think it's sometimes easier to make a decision that's like, I'm just going to go do this for a while. Because we tell ourselves like, well, as soon as everything's better, we'll come back.
Of course we'll come back.
And it's so we kind of might dismiss how big of a decision that is,
Sure.
not realizing that, hey, once you're somewhere, it's hard to go back.
Yeah.
Even if you're just like, oh, we'll just go here for 6 months.
Yeah.
How often does 6 months turn into forever?
Yeah. Yeah. So Naomi's decision to return, I don't think we can minimize that.
No.
And certainly we cannot minimize the spiritual ramifications of that, which I don't even know if those were on her mind at the time. But
What do you mean?
Well, when I read the book of Ruth and I read about Naomi's decision to return, there is something unmistakably spiritual about that to me. Even if she didn't realize it at the time, she was going back to the place of God's promise.
Yeah.
So it's a picture at
Absolutely.
minimum of what it's like to come back to God after, for whatever reason, you've left him for some time.
Yeah, I so much of what I love about the genre of historical narrative in the Bible is that we see, like, even from Exodus and on, how the physical experience teaches us so much about the spiritual experience.
Yeah.
I mean, we've ever since Exodus, it's so easy to sort of make that connection now.
Yeah.
And I see what you're saying. So like, just like Naomi had to make this physical move back, sometimes we have to notice and decide that where we are is not good.
Yeah.
And make a spiritual move back to the Lord.
Yeah. And one of the things that strikes me also is that from the outside looking in, it's very easy for us to say, good job, Naomi. You obviously are doing the right thing. And to make it just seem like that's some big joyous thing. But when you're in the muck of it and the reality of being someplace where you have to turn and go back to God, of course that's a good thing. But it comes with a lot of loss sometimes and a lot of pain, because in turning toward God, you're turning away from something else.
Yes. Every decision we make sort of constrains our future decisions in some way.
In some way. And it might be really easy to look back and say, oh, that was the best decision I ever made. But there are many times when in it feels like a loss, even if in the long term it's going to be a gain. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, I think that's why probably so many people talk about like their rock bottom moment. Because a rock bottom moment, you have no other choice. Mm-hmm. You're as low as it's going to get. Yeah. And that might be why so many people need a rock bottom before they make a change, because they still have some options available.
Yeah.
But that one, you're like, oh, okay, like I will do the ridiculously hard thing, or the thing that I'm just not really sure how this is going to play out, but I got nothing left to lose. You know?
Yeah.
Maybe that's why rock bottom moments are so necessary for some of these big changes.
To change the trajectory of your life.
This was certainly a rock bottom moment for Naomi.
Yeah. And she makes the decision to return.
Really appreciate the fact that we are given some insight into Naomi's struggles, her internal struggles. Like if she had just kept that inside, and if she had not said, the Lord has brought me back, the Lord has afflicted me, we wouldn't be able to see, as we see this whole story play out, how that would change. I also, I like to take a step back whenever I'm looking at any book of the Bible and see like how it fits into the overall narrative. And then I also like to just look at it in general, like, okay, this book has 21 chapters, or this book has whatever. How is it broken down big picture? How's it chunked up?
Yeah.
And so the book of Ruth, that's super easy to do.
Super easy.
It's 4 chapters. I was thinking about that this morning was, okay, so like the whole first chapter is basically giving us information about what happened before. And then we're going to get into basically the middle where the bulk of what happens
The action happens, yeah.
And then we get kind of the end.
Yeah.
But when we look at people's stories, often what we hear about is that last part.
Yeah.
We hear about all the action and then the results of the action, like all that came about and we forget that there's this whole, when God made or gave us the story of Ruth, one full chapter, 25% is this backstory.
Yeah.
And doesn't that make you just think about if you're kind of in this area where, you know, people made decisions and they affected you and you had this hard decision in front of you and it's sort of invisible to everybody else. And then you have this view of God that might not be exactly what you think it should be or you know that it should be.
Yeah.
All of that sort of sets the stage for these other things that are going to happen. And I found it a little encouraging when we consider our own stories.
Yeah. And when we think about other people's stories, because sometimes we'll look at people and think, oh,
well, they've had it together forever.
But no, not at all.
Right.
There's a backstory there as well. One of the other things we were talking about when it came to this first chapter is there really is this pull to feel like the way something is now is the way that it's always going to be.
Yes.
Whether you're in just a really stable, good time in your life, you have no reason to believe
that anything's
that's
ever
going to change. And so you almost just take that state of affairs for granted.
Yes.
But then on the reverse of that, when things are really hard and really trying, it's very easy to fall to the temptation to believe that I am never going to change. I am never going to get out of this. And we see that in Naomi right here.
Yeah, that's one of the most encouraging things about the book of Ruth is how quickly her circumstances change.
Yeah.
You know, once she made that return home, from chapter 1 till chapter 4 could be basically around a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a huge encouragement to us when we're in the middle of something that our circumstance, I don't know about you, but I've had that happen to me where I'm like, I'm never going to get out of this deep, dark place that I am.
Yeah.
And actually, one of the things that most grew my faith was the fact that, you know, I'm a thinker.
Yeah.
So I think, hey, in order for my spiritual struggle for me to come through it, I'm going to need God to give me some information.
Yeah.
I'm going to need to understand why this happened the way that it happened or whatever. And one of the most encouraging things that ever happened to me was not that, but just the fact that, and I can't even pinpoint it, but like one day I'm in this thing forever. And then just one day the cloud lifts.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know why.
God
it certainly wasn't God giving me some information.
Yeah.
But just how much God decides how long something lasts and that it's for a reason.
Yeah.
And that he's going to do something so you don't have to think, I can't do this forever.
Yeah.
Because you might not have to do this forever. Like tomorrow
it could be
the day when everything changes.
That is one spiritual discipline I've had to intentionally focus in on in this stage of my life. I am more apt now to just wake up one day feeling completely depressed than I have ever. I'm just not naturally inclined to that. I'm very often, or I have been historically, just a more upbeat person. But there is something about this particular stage of my life where I can wake up on a Monday morning, and be like, this is it. I'm done for. I've ruined everything.
I'll just give you a few more assignments that'll keep you busy. You don't have to worry about that.
I've ruined everything. Nothing's ever going to get better.
Yeah.
And like in my head, I'm like, this makes no sense, Summer. Get it together, lady. But there is really something oppressive about that. And so to constantly remind myself of God's goodness, and this is one day, this does not necessarily determine tomorrow. And then to trust the Lord on that.
Yeah.
And just like you said, like by Wednesday afternoon, sometimes I'm like, oh, wow, it's gone.
And that's for big things and small things.
And small things, yeah.
You know, like just taking that step back that, you know, why do I feel the way that I feel? Or what is the thing that I feel
and
hopeless about?
Not letting those feelings dictate how we go about the living of our lives.
That was one of the biggest, one of the biggest encouragements I got from Naomi's decision, because Naomi made the right decision. And like often I feel like we saddle ourselves with the expectation that we need to make the right decision. And we need to make the right decision with the right attitude and the right state of, like, we've got to be like, and that's just not the truth.
No.
She made the right decision despite the fact that she wasn't feeling any of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
She did not really want anything to do with God.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm putting words in her mouth. She she felt very hurt, and she felt as though God was the one who had brought this about. So she has this, like, you know, she's not going back to Israel because she's so overcome with worship and happiness.
Sure.
And
she can't wait to get back to God.
No. But she was able to make that decision, and the results of that decision, the results were based on her decision, not on
how she felt
about God, or her wrong view of God, or how, you know, it wasn't based on her feelings at all.
No, and something that that you've said before that really struck me is, first of all, what caused her to return was that she had heard that the Lord had provided for his people's need by giving them food.
Yeah.
How did Naomi hear about that in Moab?
Yeah.
Like, it's a really interesting question. So there's some, even just an inkling, like a little wink in the story that somehow it just happened to happen. That Naomi heard that God had lifted the famine and that there was now food in Israel. And there's a verse about the faith the size of a mustard seed, right? And don't we just see like just enough?
Or just enough desperation. Yeah. Like, I need food.
So I'll go.
So I will go back despite the fact that I think God, I mean, how humbling is that?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Like the prodigal son coming back.
Yes.
Not because out of an abundance of love for his father,
no, but my
because
dad
he needed the provision.
Food, and I will be a hired hand of my dad.
Yeah. We get a really strong picture of that.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a lot of Naomi's it probably doesn't really hit us as hard if we don't understand that being a sonless widow in ancient times was like a life of poverty.
Yeah.
So I imagine that in Moab, she's like destitute,
no family connections,
and hearing that there's food somewhere, like that's going to cause you to go.
Prompt her to go.
Yeah. So talk about a rock bottom moment.
Yeah, rock bottom moment, and she returned to God. One of the questions I wanted us to get to, in light of all these decisions, Orpah's decision to turn back, Naomi's decision to return, Ruth's decision to go with Naomi, Mahlon and Chilion's to stay, Elimelech's to leave. We have decisions. Yeah. And how do we know when we're making the decision God wants us to make? I think it's very easy. And I've had this conversation countless times over the last maybe 10 or 15 years in my life with friends. It's easy to get in a position where you have a decision to make and you're scared of making the wrong one.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, obviously I'm like the type that's like, God, could you just write it on the wall?
Well,
just make it so obvious. And I'm sort of struck, or, by the fact that that doesn't happen.
God doesn't do that.
all the time.
Oh.
You know,
Really rarely.
rarely, yeah. Well, not writing on the wall, but like where you feel so certain
Yeah.
that this is exactly what you should do. I mean, I love those moments, and maybe I'm doing something wrong, so somebody can tell me how I could get. But I do think, you know, at least the showing up, you know, even taking like having our posture toward the Lord about all decisions that we make. Hey, show me what I'm not showing. Like there's some things that we can do to help us when we're making a decision. Like we can make sure that we are praying about it, that we have other people praying about it. We can ask him to show us what's unseen in a decision.
Yeah.
The thing that, you know, is really important that we just aren't paying attention to at all.
Yeah.
We can start making like steps towards things. Like, well, let me just explore this a little bit more. Let me ask a few more questions because that can sort of reveal. But I also think that sometimes we don't want to be stuck like Mahlon and Killian where they just don't make a decision because not making a decision is still a decision.
Yeah.
So we don't want to constrain our decision making to only if and when I hear so loudly and clearly from the Lord am I going to do anything. There's a risk to that as well.
There is. And we don't want to not make a decision because we're afraid of making the wrong decision. Something I've had to tell myself again and again is God is not trying to trick you.
Totally true.
He's not trying to trick you. And if you, in an honest move, like you're seeking the Lord, you still just don't know. You move one way, and then you're like, I'm not sure if that was right. God is so gracious with us. And I tell my kids often, I have 3 teenagers now, so I tell them often, there is so much grace for our mess ups.
Oh, yeah.
I don't ever want to live in the fear that I'm ever going to mess something up so bad that God can't get me to where he wants me to be.
Yeah, there have been throughout the Bible lots of stories of people who have made way bigger mistakes that God has still, they've turned and God has been gracious to them to make things, you know, a lot better. So no, we don't want to err on the side of we're not moving because I had a pastor once say, God moves or directs a moving ship. So sometimes we sort of have to kind of step out there and then God can more easily direct us one way or the other. And in my case, you know, usually if something's not right, God will bring it up and then bring it up again. And then bring it up again. Not like super necessarily like in my face, but it just keeps coming to mind. So you have plenty of opportunities, especially if you're oriented toward the Lord, for him to direct us back the way that we need to be. So we like to wrap this up all the time by talking about what we saw in God in this chapter. So what attribute of God or what characteristic of God was most prevalent to you as you looked at chapter 1?
I think the thing that I found to be most striking about God in chapter 1 of Ruth would have to be something along the lines of his quiet patience. Like the term long suffering came to my mind.
That's so good.
He doesn't speak in the book of Ruth.
Right.
So we don't get any obvious signs, like we've said, of this is my will, I am pleased with you, I am displeased with this decision. But what we do see behind the words of chapter 1 is a God who is steady and who is present and who is there.
Yeah, 10 years they were outside of Israel.
And then Naomi hears that the Lord is providing for his people's need by giving them food. And I just thought, what a patient God to just wait until there was the opportunity for him to do something that would move his child home.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
What an encouragement to all of us.
It really is. Okay. Well, that is what we found in Ruth chapter 1. I am Summer.
And I'm Christy.
And we'll see you next time.